All right. Welcome, welcome. My name is Jose, and thank you for making time for this, for giving us your next 30 and 40 minutes. We have prepared a lot of content, and we hope everything that we have put together for you guys today is insightful. Today, we're going to be talking about a CRM in healthcare. Everything that is going to be shared here is going to be under the lights of HubSpot. And we're going to be talking about how to design a HIPAA-ready CRM for revenue and AI-driven growth. For the conversation today, I didn't come alone. I brought our head of service delivery, Sierra, right here. And that's a good segue into intros. So, Sierra, take it away.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Sierra Halstenberg. I am head of service delivery for NAM at Triario. I've been working in marketing technology and CRM implementations for about 10 years. My role here is to lead delivery across complex CRM engagements, which means really translating business goals into actual systems and processes and automations and integrations that teams use every day. I've also been working closely with healthcare clients, really guiding them through their CRM implementation projects from discovery to execution, as well as ongoing optimization. So I'm here today. I'm not just speaking from a strategy perspective, but more from a hands-on experience building this kind of architecture in practice. So what we want to do is just show you how we think about healthcare CRM architecture in a way that is operational, scalable, and also realistic for organizations that, feel like they're juggling growth and compliance and disconnected systems.
Thank you, Sierra. That's a great intro. I didn't prepare something like that, but my name is Jose. I'm the regional president here for North America. So I lead the operations and the sales team at Triario. Our company has been out in the market for over 16 years now. We have helped customers of all sizes and across many industries. We specialize in a few of those verticals, healthcare being one of those. What we do is we help companies deploy go-to-market strategies that are CRM and AI centric. So a lot of what you guys are going to see today is the result of everything that we've learned with dozens of clients in the past. And we really hope you find this insightful. All right. So to kick things off here, the healthcare growth is operationally complex. So Sierra, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Yes. So what this does, really sets the stage we see the problem for healthcare organizations. They're not struggling because they lack the tools, but really struggling because the patient journey is just operationally complex. And most CRMs just weren't designed to reflect how healthcare actually works. So you'll see here like the core issues like disconnected intake, scheduling gaps, no revenue visibility, PHI security risk, and then overall the challenge of targeted patient marketing based on where the patient is in the specific, for example, the procedure journey. So the real issue is not just lead capture, it's what happens after the lead comes in. So can marketing and intake communicate? Can scheduling status be reflected back to the CRM? Can you understand which campaigns actually drove procedures or revenue, and can you do all of that without creating that compliance risk? So that's really the lens we want to share in this webinar, where the CRM is not just like a contact database, but the CRM is like an operational system that supports the overall growth of the organization.
Mm-hmm. And how that affects different teams that involves marketing, call center, operations, and basically how the CRM fits across all of those systems. So, and to tie this back to what Sierra just said, the tech stack is very complex as well. So we're talking about EMR or EHRs, patient engagement tools, calling systems, website forms and lead intake, the website itself, CRM, financial and accounting systems. All of these tools typically are fragmented and not necessarily connected to one another. And there is one factor here that affects or triggers most of that. It is that the EHR, we're talking about PHI, this sensitive information and data cannot be shared. So these systems are designed in a way that they do not share or natively connect to any other systems out there. So naturally, processes follow that and end up being siloed. And it is very hard to take one process away after the lead comes in, pass that lead intake into the calling system. And because the calling system has to be HIPAA compliant as well, it may or may not be connected. And once they connect with them, they have to put everything into the EHR. And EHRs are very closed and typically do not offer a lot of write abilities when you connect via API. So all of those just creates a crisis of connections. And here's what healthcare companies need. And I'm going to take this for the first one here, and I'll let you speak to this, Sierra. But HIPAA-aware CRM. So back to the problem with PHI, these companies need a source of truth, an orchestration layer that allows them to store and send information back and forth without breaking, while staying HIPAA compliant, right? And that is not easy. That requires some technical workarounds and working around the API limitations of each of those systems.
Great. Thanks for adding that in. Yeah, so there are 4 big requirements here. Just as Jose mentioned, a HIPAA-aware CRM, of course, appointment automation, revenue attribution, and overall, essentially, a better patient experience. So first, the CRM has to be configured in a way that supports compliant engagement data management, right? Second, it has to reduce operational workload through automation, especially around appointment-related processes. Third, it has to connect campaigns to the procedures. So the board and the leadership can really see what's driving revenue. And finally, all of that should result in a better coordinated patient experience. I really want to emphasize the combination, right? That's what really matters. If you're solving for marketing, you miss operations. And if you only solve for operations, there's a risk of missing attribution. So the goal is to design a system where both of those pieces work together.
That was beautifully said. Thank you, Sierra. That's correct. All right. So next slide here. A case study. So before we actually speak to the how we solve for that, we're going to speak to one of our clients. Her name is Fido. It's a plastic surgery clinic in Miami. They achieved 90% appointment conversion, a 2-hour response window for their lead intakes. After the lead intake, source and visibility, one source of visibility, which is the CRM. And they started from a fragmented ecosystem. They receive over 100 daily social media inquiries. There's a lot of social media engagement for them. They receive lead intakes through different channels, including WhatsApp. And because they have this fragmented system, including a former CRM they used to operate out of, I believe it was Salesforce. Then they needed to re-articulate all of that into a cohesive system and orchestrating all of the call center and their physical clinics so that appointment was scheduled and put into their systems as soon as possible. So we accomplished that, and everything they're going to see moving forward is part of the how, right? Not specifically to what we did for them, but to what we do for clients in the healthcare space. So to speak to that, let me tell you, there are 3 main moments, let's call it maturity moments, that the healthcare companies go through when implementing a CRM. The first one is this one right here, and apologies for the not so pretty images here, but they paint a picture. So the first one is website forms, they go into spreadsheets, there might be a calling system, and then the EHR. But typically the 3 latter, they do not speak to each other. Spreadsheets are one process, calling is another one, the HR. So there's a lot of manual and data input into each one of those systems. Then they say, okay, so you know what? We need a CRM. So let's go ahead and buy a CRM, and we connect and we implement it. And what happens? We create a new silo. So now we have all of that plus another CRM and more manual data input. That just doesn't work. It's adding more to their workload, and the reliability of that data is not there. What really should happen is that the CRM needs to sit across all of those systems. Once the CRM is in place, you're replacing the spreadsheets. You still have a website, forms, calling systems, specialized calling systems, and EHR. CRMs have some calling capabilities, but given the complexities of those calling workflows, many times you supplement that with a third-party calling system. But the CRM is connected to all of that and allows orchestration across all of those systems and being a single source of visibility. I don't call it a single source of truth because we typically that stays on the EHR system, but HubSpot mirrors all the records and all of the data so that those call center teams, reps, and marketing teams, they can stay aligned and see the same level of data. This is going to, now to further expand on the data model there, when we connect the CRM should be the first receiver of the lead intake data to preserve metadata. That means that we cannot just connect the CRM and keep everything that was connected to the EHR at the EHR level. Instead, we need to bring that into the CRM, and I'll show you some example of that. Second, it needs to be connected to the EMR or EHR. It will not replace it. Of course, HubSpot is not trying to do that. It's going to mirror those records to enable the right processes, automations, reporting, and whatnot. And it should be able to filter who's a patient and who's not, and why, because all data points are there. So without getting into too much detail, this is typically a flowchart of a data model for a healthcare company. And I'm going to zoom in a second, but everything you see in the orange box is HubSpot. Everything out of that is our third-party tools. The way that the process typically works is that calls come in through specialized calling tools. They flow into the CRM, and that coupled with website forms, paid ads, live chat integration, all of those lead sources come into the CRM, not to the EHR, not to spreadsheets, because we are preserving metadata on attribution, campaign, and all of that data. Then all that appointment scheduling happens inside the CRM. New patient, attempting, connecting, scheduling, and or disqualified or not scheduled. Throughout that appointment scheduling process, there can be automations for follow-ups, reminders. So your call center team is working out of the CRM here and tracking all of their tasks, calls, and whatnot. There could be automation to gather insurance information or send email requesting additional data if needed. But the CRM is also connected to procedures. So each procedure or program that the patient enrolls in is going to be mapped here. Appointments are also part of the CRM. Even billing and insurance processes can be tracked inside the CRM. I'm not going to get into that level of detail. But what I want to highlight is that the EMR is right here. So EMRs, EHRs, they would have patient appointment procedures, invoices, payments. We typically see customers connect those bi-directionally when available, when possible, and patient data, it's patient data appointments and procedures go back and forth between the CRM and the EMR. So everything that they do here, so if they set an appointment, it goes back into the EMR and the appointment is there. Or sometimes if the appointment is created in the EMR, then it goes back into the CRM. So that's the level of orchestration that we're speaking to here, and how HubSpot sits across all of your systems to provide that unified source of visibility. I hope you guys didn't throw up and it was comprehensive and not too much. We try to make it as simple as we can. Okay. Moving forward to the data model and orchestration for the healthcare. So 3 things that we need to aim for. One is that marketing has to have all of their channels connected. Website forms, paid ads, calling systems, all of that needs to flow into the CRM, not into spreadsheets or the EHR. Appointments and procedures, automated tracking. So those procedures are generated and tracked on the EMR. So say a clinic providing a certain type of treatment would create those, and those come into HubSpot as deals/procedures. HubSpot is not generating those. They're coming from the EHR. And finally, all the EMR and data lake or information coming from data lakes or all the PHI information is securely synced into the CRM. Because HubSpot is HIPAA compliant, then you can track all of that information, sync it back into the CRM while staying HIPAA compliant.
Great. Thanks for going over all that, Jose. Benefits of healthcare data models. So Jose has went through a lot of this very granular, but I'm going to kind of give you a high level overview of what we see here. So this is the payoff of the architecture, right? So once the data model is structured correctly, you get centralized patient acquisition and marketing data, clear attributions from campaigns to procedures and revenue, structured appointments, consultation management, procedure tracking from consultation to completion, and just more coordinated intake, scheduling, and patient communication. So what this means in practical terms is that HubSpot stops being just a marketing tool and becomes more of an orchestration layer around the patient journey, right? So instead of those fragmented reporting and disconnected teams, you have one data model that just ties all of that together: the acquisition, the appointments, the procedures, and the communication. So that's where we see the real value. That's where it comes from. The benefit is not just the cleaner data, but it's better visibility, better coordination, and overall just better decision making across the organization.
So what does that look like in practice? When we're talking about automating some of those processes that Sierra was mentioning, number one is, well, I'm actually going to start here with HIPAA compliance. All of that data that is we save into the CRM stays HIPAA compliant. HubSpot allows HIPAA compliant, securely storing PHI. All that information can be stored in a HIPAA compliant way. And it doesn't mean that we're bringing all of the patient information inside HubSpot. We're only bringing those data points that really matter for the call center and marketing teams to be able to segment out of that and create the reports and automations. Two is, once the data is in there, because we have all those data points there, we know at what point in the journey those patients are. So we can use the automations tools to create any type of patient journey automation. So think of the most basic things like appointment reminders, to upsell, cross-sells, to recuperating or re-engaging patients that didn't complete or move forward with a certain procedure, or segmenting the patients that converted into a procedure and using that to feed back into your paid ads campaigns to optimize that cost per click. We've seen those feedback loops work significantly well with other customers, and all of that can only work if we have all of those data end to end, all the data from marketing and all of the procedure data as well. The third item that I want to mention here, go ahead, Sarah.
Jose, real quick, we have a question in the chat, and I think you're the right person to answer this. So Juanita has asked, where exactly does HubSpot's responsibility end and ours begin when it comes to protecting PHI?
Okay, where does HubSpot responsibility end and ours begin? And I think when we say ours begin is the rest of the ecosystem. I would say that everything you send into HubSpot is going to stay compliant, right? If we flag or configure it that way as sensitive data. So everything that is then should stay HIPAA compliant. Because it can be stored there doesn't mean that it has to. So the way that we advise our customers is, if you don't need it for reporting, automation, or segmentation in the CRM for those operations and marketing teams, do not bring it into the CRM, because we don't need it there. And that typically stays into the EHRs. I hope that answers the question for you, Juanita. All right. Now, next point here is procedure and appointment visibility. So we can track all of those treatments opportunities across different stages. HubSpot would track those procedures as something called deals, and they go through different stages. So you have a record here, knowing what is the exact stage of that process that patient is in at any point in time. And that is an additional data point that the marketing team can use to send out communications, cross-sell, upsell, and any type of automations from there. And the last one is revenue attribution, because we have the end-to-end data of where the leads are coming from, campaigns, and all of that data, all the way until the procedure is concluded. Then we can tie the revenue and attribution amounts back to the marketing data points. So we can know how much revenue came from one specific campaign, one specific ad channel, how much came from social, Facebook, ads, Google, website, direct traffic, and whatnot. We can break down attribution by channel, by campaign, or by asset, meaning this specific landing page drove this amount of revenue. And finally, this gets a little bit more fancy. Doing everything that we just spoke is that foundational layer. Now, let me give you a quick, shed some light into the future. Once we have reliable data inside the CRM and the right data structure, we can trigger some AI-powered automations or even AI agents that can simplify certain processes. A couple of use cases here. One, insurance verification, because the digits on the first letters on that insurance number typically can be used to research online and assess the coverage sometimes. Then an agent can go online if information is accessible and return whether there's coverage for a single patient. We have seen this replace or cover 50% of the patient verification requests that some of our clients do, and this can be orchestrated with HubSpot. The second item is AI calling agents. So these calling systems can know what's the status of that patient and whether they already booked an appointment. If not, they can call back and automate that and call the lead to try to get that appointment scheduled on behalf of your call center team. Number 3 is AI-assisted analytics. So creating those analytics can be challenging, but you can prompt it and use these AI systems to create them very easily. And finally, patient cart insights. And the AI can always show you what's the status of what has happened with a single patient at any point in time, which is very useful when you're in a call center rep. You get a call coming in, you see Jose, and you see a quick snapshot of all of the engagement that has happened without having to go into the timeline and read each individual record or event. One last message here as we get into the last slide is that we specialize in healthcare, CRM, and AI deployment. This is what we do. We help companies like you implement, deploy, and scale CRM-centric systems that connect to the rest of your tech stack. And on top of that, we build AI and implement AI to scale those processes for marketing, operations, and sales much, much faster. Now, that said, if you had any questions, this is the moment. You can type it down in your comments. We have a marketing team in the back doing a great job at putting those at the forefront here for us. So this is your moment. If my HubSpot is already a mess, wrong data in the wrong places, no real governance, where do you even start? That's a great question. When your HubSpot is not reliable because you have been using it for a period of time, the best way to start is to put it aside and rethink your processes. In an ideal world scenario, how does your process work? What is the right data structure? What are the different sources for patient? How should that flow into the CRM? Contrast that's the first step. Then contrast that against your reality and see if what you have there is workable. Very often the answer is no. And what you do is you export the contact record or what is reliable and then implement from scratch and then import back if you don't care about that historic data. If historic data is important for you, then there might be a need for a cleanup and data hygiene process as you create all that data structure that is required. But yeah, those are two different approaches that you can go. Which HubSpot AI features are actually safe to use in a HIPAA environment, and which ones should teams stay away from? That is a good question. So I would say anything that is relying on when you're using LLMs that are connected to the CRM. Those LLM systems can be, depending on what you're leveraging, they can be using your proprietary or your own accounts, so the data stays within your ecosystem. There are other features when you connect with third-party sources to trigger AI. So, for example, if you're running an AI workflow and you have to activate a third-party tool, then that the information that you're sending over might not be, or you might be exposing PHI. So that would be risky. If you are using LLMs that are not embedded or native into the CRM, I would advise you to be very careful and do some research to make sure whether that system is HIPAA compliant or not. How do you balance giving your sales team enough visibility to their job without overexposing sensitive patient data? So you can store all that information inside the CRM. Because you can do it, it doesn't mean that you have to, right? What level of data does your sales team or call center team really needs to set up those appointments? That typically is the insurance coverage, the previous appointments, the information that they submitted on their forms. So all of that needs to be put in there. Specific information about invoices, billing is not always required. So I think you have to, at the end of the day, you have to know what exactly do they need and sync that back into the CRM. Right now, what we see the customers do is because when they don't have a CRM, they go into the EHR and they can see most of the data they're into the EHR and they only need 15, 20% of that. So is that 15 and 20% what you really need to sync back into the CRM? All right. Are there any more questions there? Well, then we appreciate y'all's time. As next steps here is in what to expect. And I do apologize because I know there's a little bit of noise in my background. There's something that I cannot control right now. So I hope that was not too disruptive. But thank you for making time for this. We do these webinars very often. We try to focus on or try to be something that is insightful and represent the experience of what we do with other clients like you. We're going to send these recordings via email. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram, and you can book a call with us if you want to talk. If something here resonated with the challenges and the process that you guys are going through right now, scan this QR code or go to our website, book a call with us, and our sales team will be ready to help you out. We have a lot of information that we can share, and we're looking forward to speaking with you. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.